drink, just go to the bar. They're closing down. Good morning, everybody. Emily is in a secure location. We did change. She'll be back in 2 weeks, I think. So we're good to go there. Sergeant at Arms, Howard, you ready? Is Howard? Yeah. You ready to roll?
Sergeant at Arms, we do the prayer and
I think Byers got something he wants to say.
no, we do the prayer and then the pledge of allegiance.
All right, sorry. Ashley.
I am ready.
Howard, Ashley had her mouth full. I was trying to help her out.
Let's bow our heads and pray. Dear Lord, all of us here have so much to be grateful for, and let us remember that even when our day feels difficult. Please bless us as we start this beautiful day. Thank you for the rain that nourishes the earth and washes the dust away. Help us to see our opportunities in this day, ways to spread kindness, ways to help others, and to put the needs of those around us before our own. Bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies and us to your service. In your name we pray. Amen. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now a four-way test of the things we think, say, and do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Pretty smooth, eh?
In the mirror for like an hour left.
Before I do my Rotary moment, I have to tell you all, I'm walking in my office yesterday, and this good-looking guy pulls up in a car next to me. He's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey," and he goes, "You have to do the invocation tomorrow." And it's Ralph Jones, and I'm like, "Ha ha ha, that's funny." And he's like, I was like, but I was worried because Chip Vale did it at the Changing Guard. I thought, oh, I'm W, and he's V. And just come up. He's like, no, I'm kidding. There's some S's in between. And then the next thing I know, he's texting me an hour later. No, seriously, you're next. So, I was ready. Now for my Rotary moment. My Rotary moment is about ringing the bell. No, it's really not. Everyone's my Rotary moment, I really have been thinking, I'm W, so I've had a while to think about my Rotary moment. And the one I kept coming back to, I actually was not a Rotarian. I wasn't at a Rotary event. My father, some of you may know, is Al Madden, and he has been in the Crescent Club since 1989. And so I grew up in a Rotary family. And they had a club in Mexico that they kind of had this sister relationship. I should say brother, because it's really men, but anyway, they had a relationship with this club in Celaya, Mexico. And they had people go down there and people come up. And so my father had made friends with this guy, Jorge, and his wife, Marie. And they invited us to come down and spend a week with them and their family. So, as you know, my family went down there, and I didn't go to a Rotary meeting, but we went to an orphanage as part of that. They really took us in. They took us to a wedding. We went to a baby shower, which is very different than a baby shower in the States. It lasts like 12 hours. It involves a lot of drinking. But in any case, everywhere we went, Jorge and Marie introduced us as the Rotarians from Greensboro, North Carolina. There was so much admiration and pride and respect, and getting to go to an orphanage and have all these experiences that I would have never had if it hadn't been for Rotary. And it just made me realize at a young age, I think I was about 22 at the time, that there's a world of people out there that are connected by this club. And all you have to do if you're somewhere else and you meet another Rotarian is say, I'm a Rotarian too. And you're instantly connected to that person. So that's my Rotary moment.
Buster, can I ring the bell? Are we done?
Good morning, everyone. We have 35 members today and 5 guests. Deborah Freeman from Summit is here. Clifford Thompson from Crescent. Paul Creamer and Andrew Cumby from Willow Creek.
A couple words about Willow Creek Club is dissolved, so they're actually looking for a new Rotary home. and they're checking out the Gate City Club, which, as we know, is the best club in the district. So y'all give them a warm welcome.
And Dan, you have a guest, don't you?
Yeah, I'll introduce Mike Byers, our speaker later, and my daughter Katie has joined us this morning. Terrific. As Kevin?
Yep.
Way back there.
Let's see, we've got birthdays and anniversaries. This week we do not have any birthdays, but we do have some Rotary anniversaries. Emily, who's not here, on the 9th is celebrating her 5th anniversary with Rotary. Guy is with us on the 12th, or 7 years, excuse me. And then for wedding anniversaries, on July 7th, we have Tom and Julie Nelson. And that's it for their anniversaries.
Very good. Announcements. Chip, do you want to say something about Big Stop?
Oh, wow, pick stock, caught me off guard, but that needs to be the order of the day, right? Ashley, got a spot in the rest of you.
Thanks, buddy.
Big stock, October the 11th, this fall, I want you to say the date. We're taking pig stock that we did last year, and quite a few of y'all came out. It's actually an official Rotary thing now. It's a family of Rotary event. We've got at least 10 teams cooking barbecue out at Jamesford Meadows. Probably start about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, went till 9 or 10 o'clock. We've got 2 different bands. The bands will start earlier, and we'll play later. There will be beer, there will be barbecue, there will be fun, but there'll also be Cokes and water and everything else. And I just want you to say the date. We'll be organizing the Hunk of Burning Rub barbecue team, which not only was judges' choice, but people's choice. And there's several guys gunning for us. They thought we had the fix in since we didn't know the judges. But I can assure you it was all in good Rotarian fun. October the 11th, please say that it's going to be a nice day. Thank you.
Do we know what judges?
Well, actually,
We're negotiating the cost. Cheryl, do you want to say something about about corporate sponsors for?
We're so excited about Party with a Purpose, our Gate City fundraiser event, big event. David Graves, this looks beautiful. Everybody pick it up and look at it. Dan is spearheading it. He's quite the general. Everybody on this team is instructed to work very hard. So now I'm asking all of you to work very hard. On the back, we have a sponsorship response form. Remember, all this money is going to charity. Whatever we raise, we can benefit everybody listed on the middle section. So what I'm asking each of you to do, as soon as today, is sponsor this event. Each of us is affiliated with at least our own company and maybe some others. So Dan has a goal that we'll have 15 sponsors by next meeting. So please, please help me. We're going to send this out to everybody in an email, in a PDF format today. And we just can't wait. Dan, do you want to tell them what's going to happen at this party?
We'll be going over that later. Sarah's going to talk a little bit about that's my thing today is calling. Everybody's got their mouth full.
Okay.
Sarah's going to give us a little word on the silent auction.
Yeah, so yesterday I sent out an email about the silent auction. We have not done a silent auction in the past at our fundraiser, but it's really a great opportunity to increase the revenue that we bring in. You know, there's a lot of costs that go into the fundraiser, but a silent auction, $300 item is what we're asking of each member. We've had some very gracious donations already. Dan Quinn has donated 100,000 Amex points. I've already tried to buy them off of him. I cannot buy them in advance, but and Gala has donated Brothers of Roth's box for Grasshoppers game for 24 people and parking. We've had a variety of different donations. So it's just thinking about your place of business, if you have a product that you're able to donate with a $300 value, if not somewhere that you frequent quite often, restaurants, what have you. If it's not $300, we can group some together. That's just our goal. So we're asking each of you to just kind of rack your brain, gift certificates, products, whatever it may be. And I ask just for ideas and things that you may solicit, ultimately solicit by next week, just so I can make sure we have a variety of different things for people to bid on.
We'll have a short meeting for fundraising after this, but we won't take any more time this morning. Buster, we have time for Happy Dollars?
I don't think so.
Big dollar.
All right. Pick up demand, 2 weeks.
have to get my money out.
They're going over and swap water.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Hey guys, good morning. It's early, it's gonna be short. So I'm not used to being up this early, but hi. And I just wanted to thank you guys for letting me have the opportunity to go to the Rotary Youth Leadership Camp. And I'm just really looking forward to that, and I'm glad to share that with you next time I come here. So thank you.
You got your money in?
I got my money. I have two. I mentioned my father in my Rotary moment. My parents celebrated their 45th wedding anniversary this past week. We're really happy about that. My father, we're happy about it anyway, because it's good. And hard. But my father's had Parkinson's for 4 years, so it really means a lot to our family. He's doing well and hanging in there, and that they've celebrated 45 years together. And my second one is also family related. My brother and his wife are having a little girl next month, so our whole family's getting to go this weekend in Atlanta. I'm helping to host a baby shower, and we're going to celebrate the anniversary and the baby to be a little girl. So excited. This will be my 5th time being an aunt. And so yeah, it's just a really great happy dollar week for me and the family.
You have like a Mexican baby shower with the.
I will. I love that.
See, the difference is the Mexican baby shower or when babies start. You're celebrating the start of the baby. Harley.
So I found out, I guess, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that I'm having another girl. I'm really excited.
Not Mexican.
Not Mexican. So Matthew's still not sure how this happened.
We won't explain it. We won't explain it to him.
The other thing is we have been on an exhausting search for a house because we sold our house before we found a house. And, you know, I'm a city girl and Matthew's a country boy, and that's been really challenging. So, but we are in due diligence and probably going to move in 2.5 weeks. So, quick closing, but we're excited. So.
The city girl won out.
We can go up against it regularly.
We'll serve you well.
Yeah, I got you.
See it change.
I mentioned the baby shower. A group at the library meets called a walking group of women from around the world in the public library. And at the end of this month, there's going to be a baby shower for 2 of the women. And thought it might be nice if any Rotarians want to help out and welcome some new people to Greensboro and explain to them what a baby shower is. And have a good time. You can see me and I'll send something out on the list about it.
Baby shower thing. Jonathan's standing up. He's jumping in front of the women.
Buster, you know, I've been to a number of these baby showers over the years. And, you know, they're all, nowadays, you know, they have both husband and wife, you know, you have couples come to baby showers. You know, back when Ann and I had kids, you just had the girls got together and they threw a baby shower. But one of the things that I've been doing lately is to tell the young couple not to use up all the good names on the pets. To save some of them for the pets. And the other happy dollar is for Tom Richardson. Just seeing the photos of the changing of the guard, it made it much more special to me to see those, Tom, because Ann and I couldn't be there, and it was just a thrill to see those pictures. I know you said that there were a lot of seersucker suits, and so I wore mine a week late, but the only one I saw was Mike Conrad. And every time I saw Mike Conrad, he was testing a dessert. I did see Bobby in one.
Cheryl.
I would like to thank Dennis Marcotte. A couple years ago, my son-in-law started as an accountant, and I approached Dennis and I said, he's not really happy. He said, well, he's got to stay there for a few years. And then sure enough, when he was ready, Dennis came through and he found him a wonderful job 2 weeks ago, and he starts on Monday. So thank you, Dennis.
All right.
Yeah.
Steve, you're in the wrong place.
I know.
So this is a little happy / sad dollar. So my assistant at the office, her nephew a couple weeks ago, 13-year-old, did what most of us guys did in a pool as we were growing up, dove in and broke his neck. And so he's paralyzed as of right now in his legs, one of his arms completely. He's getting some movement back in one of his arms. They don't know if he'll have any use of his hands or not. Today, I guess the happy dollar is that they said he was not going to have any use of his arms. One of his arms is moving again, so there is some progress happening, which is good. I wanted to just bring everybody's attention. One, keep in your prayers. It's really hitting my assistant really, really hard. He's 13 years old, and just his whole life is normal is a different normal now for sure. But secondly, she has started a GoFundMe page. I don't want to, be obtrusive at all, but if it's on your heart at all to help, they've already raised over $10,000 to help. He's a single dad, and so they've already raised over $10,000, but it's GoFundMe.com/Pat Jr. And if anybody, again, if it's on your heart to help, they definitely would appreciate it. But please keep them in your thoughts and prayers.
Send that an email.
Could you send an email?
I sent an email. Well, I was just going to tell about the first time that I came in from being a sergeant at arms. I found out I was sergeant at arms about 10 minutes before I was sergeant at arms. Didn't know anybody at the club. And so I came in, I got the cash box, all the tickets and everything. And somebody says, "Oh, well, you're supposed to be doing the invocation today." So I drop everything, do the pledge. Back then we didn't do the 4-way test, but I caught absolute holy you-know-what because I didn't have an invocation. And so every now and then we do get caught off guard, Dan. So, but it seems like Buster corrected me on that. I'm not
We
sure.
did call you the heathen for a long time.
Oh, I know. And then look what happened.
That was your nickname.
I got a joke for you about that later.
Is it then or now? You're calling me the heathen.
Yeah, when that.
And I would like to say this, I'll throw another $1. I think I'd rather go to a Mexican baby shower than one of those other ones.
Well, I was thinking this morning, we started doing Happy Dollars about 1996, and that's about the time Grandpappy Lewis came on the scene. And if you do 50 of those a year, times about 18 years, that's about 800 Grandpappy Lewises. So if I start to repeat myself, there are only so many funny things Grandpappy Lewis said in his life, but he always did say that mines are like parachutes. Just because you lost yours doesn't mean you can borrow mine.
Hal, before I introduce Mike, you want to say something else?
Yes. The committee's asked me to say a couple words about selling sponsorships. And in looking over this, a couple things hit me this year that I think is a little different. I mean, we've always had good events. The sponsorships have been great. The companies have been able to thank some of their clients in a nice event. But what I think this does a step further with the hotel rooms, it brings in Mama maybe, which is the spouse, and makes a nice event for some of your clients. So not only clients of yours should be interested in this, but some of your personal clients or friends that you can think of business-wise. A lot of people in this room are not salespeople. That is understandable. However, people want to help, but you have to ask them. They're not going to sit there and run across and say, "Mike Sling, here's my $5,000. Now what is it you're going to do again?" That's not going to happen. You have to ask. And there may be some no's. And you have to understand that that is not a personal thing. But when you start going down this list of the things we do, you're going to be shocked at the people that are going to want to give you money. A lot of you with sales and experience will go, "Well, I wonder how they're going to feel about it." How do you think they're going to feel about you if you're representing stuff like this? In a negative way? And I'm going to close with, Cheryl was talking, like we were talking at the table last year, and she was going out and having a hard time with this, and I know that what a great clientele she's got. And I said, "Cheryl, All you gotta do is pick up the phone, and then, of course, the next weekend she came back, she goes, "You're not believing me, Jesus, so old." But I will tell you something my father said, and he's been dead for 34 years, and I've said it before, and those of you that are old members of the club, but it's so, so true. I was, I don't know, 15, 16 years old, and I'm pacing back and forth in front of the couch, and Dad's reading the paper, and finally he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I got to make this phone call, and I'm a little nervous." He said, "To a girl?" I went, "Yes, sir." He said, "Son, there's only two things that woman's going to say, yes or no. Neither one of them's going to kill you, so pick the damn phone up."
Well done. Our speaker this morning is Mike Byers, and Mike and I have been friends for probably going on 20 years now. And we get together weekly for a philosophical discussion and occasionally play golf. And I asked Mike if I could introduce him, and he said, "Sure." And he said, "Well, can I just write it?" And he said, No. I'll give you my bio. So I'm not allowed to give the golf version. Mike is Associate Vice Chancellor for Business Affairs at UNC-G. Somewhere in the 19th century, my great-grandfather negotiated the real estate deal to have UNC-G where it is. And the family legend was is he did not want his children and grandchildren crossing the railroad tracks. He wanted it where it is. So you're going to have to explain this today. So, as I said, Mike is the Associate Vice Chancellor for Business Affairs at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. He's been with the university for over 18 years, responsible for the leadership of campus enterprises, which is basically everything that generates income on campus. Serving as the university's community contact person, Mike leads the university's initiative to expand the campus by doubling its housing capacity and developing other campus operations in a mixed-use setting in the West Lee Street corridor, the new Spartan Village. Mike has a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a master's in business administration from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. I can't believe I did it with my glasses. So, please welcome Mike. He's just a great guy.
Thank you, Dan. And I appreciate y'all for having me today. Is it okay if can you hear me in the back? Okay, just raise your hand if it gets too quiet and I'll step over to the mic. I want to talk a little bit today about UNC-G's campus expansion that we started a few years back because it's probably apparent to anyone who has traveled down Lee Street in the past year or so. And it's definitely the largest expansion that UNC-G has undertaken since it started. I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is that I did bring a PowerPoint presentation with me. The good news is that this is the only slide I'll show you with words on it. The rest are pictures, and I'm not going to read to you for 20 minutes. But it is important to know why UNC-G would need to expand, and this slide helps explain that. We underwent a new strategic planning process in 2009, and at higher education institutions like other organizations, you go through a process like that periodically just to make sure you've mapped your future out. And one of the things we found that we had been doing poorly over the years was keeping up with the need for student housing on campus. There's no shortage of housing in Greensboro, so if students want to come to Greensboro to go to college, there's a place they can find a bed. But we feel like it's a different product, and I can show you if you want to take an hour some other time, and I can show you how housing on campus is a different product from housing off campus because it helps the students become more successful. Success being measured in graduation and continuing your education. The way that works is in two simple steps. If you live on campus, you're significantly more likely to get engaged in activities on campus. And that makes logical sense to most of us. If you get engaged in activities on campus and in the campus life, including the academics, you are statistically more likely, significantly so, to be successful. And so living on campus is one way to drive up your success rate when you're dealing with your students. So we found in that planning process in 2009 that we really needed to add a lot more student housing that UNC-G managed and offered. In fact, we nearly wanted to double it. We had a little over 4,000 beds at the time, and when we looked at this plan, we thought that we may want to add as many as 4,000 more beds. And if you're familiar with our campus, we're nestled right in an urban area, and if you want to do something like that, there's just not a place to put it on the campus footprint that Dan's ancestors provided. We also had a need for several other facilities, and one of them being a recreation center. Students come to campus and they think a lot differently than I do, or I did when I was going to college, or I do now, about well-being and health. And so the recreation centers on campuses are an important thing to students when they're deciding where to go. The rec center that UNC-G has now was designed when it was a campus of 9,000 or 10,000 students, and now we're nearly 20,000. And so the need for more rec center space was a facility, a large facility that we felt that we needed. And of course, we had some other needs. We need police space. We've got our police tucked in nooks and crannies around campus. We call them substations to make it sound like it was intentional, but it's not. And so we wanted to put our fully commissioned police force in a more deliberate facility, and that's something we felt like we had the need for. And of course, there's always the P word, parking. And then I've listed learning communities that's a topic that could take all morning in itself, but one thing that campuses are doing far and wide now is creating communities within the residence halls that are focused so that you live with others who have the same academic or outside interests that you do. Almost every college, any of you who went, you probably had an honors college on your campus. Those are typically learning communities, living learning communities. Now you have scores of them. You'll have kids who live together who just care about sustainability and want to coexist together, take similar classes together. And so all of our new student housing will have these opportunities for students. And they take special facilities. So we decided we wanted to expand the campus. We got an architect to draw what that might look like. To get you in perspective, Dana, did that clicker have a pointer on it? I don't believe it does. All right. What you see here in the top left corner, there's a white dot. That's the water tower on Lee Street that says UNC-G. And so this street here is Aycock, and the street on the far right is Tate Street. And right down the middle in color here is Lee Street. Just above this colorized area is the railroad corridor. So that gets you a perspective of where this is. What we asked the architect to do is show us how they would stretch the UNC-G campus across the tracks between Aycock and Tate, which is where UNC-G exists now, between Aycock and Tate. And we told them what we needed. We need a rec center, we need a police station, we need as many student housing beds as you can come up with. And so what you have here in yellow and orange are student housing facilities. The orange represents where it would be mixed use on the first floor, sidewalk level, where you'd have shops or offices and the like. But these buildings would be 3 and 4 stories, and so the second, third, fourth story would be student housing where it's orange. And then where it's yellow, it just would be all student housing. Big blue rectangle represents the recreation center that we are building. And then one thing we remember from Dano's ancestors was that the railroad tracks were something we didn't want to cross on surface. So in the center here, we indicated where we would have a pedestrian underpass, a tunnel that pedestrians and bicycles could travel through in order to navigate the railroad. The only other way to do so is at Aycock and at Tate Street on the far right, safely. And at this day and time, there was a time when you could walk across the tracks there. But today, it's lined on both sides with fences, and so it's difficult to get across without crossing at Aycock or at Tate until just a couple of months ago when we opened this pedestrian underpass that's perfectly equidistant between the two. We show some purple rectangles. That's how an architect signifies I had more room than I needed. And so they showed where years and years from now, if UNC-G were still expanding, they could put more buildings these purple rectangles aren't buildings we have plans for and may never have plans for, but when we told them to fill up the space between Aycock and Tate, this is what they did. So the expansion that you can expect to see from UNC-G consists of the blue rectangles and the yellow and orange.
Does UNC-G currently own all that land?
We own everything we need.
But not all that land?
We don't own all that land. When we got this plan together in 2010, we started acquiring the land that we needed, especially for the yellow, orange, and blue rectangles. And so we have most of that and have adapted for things that we couldn't obtain. So we don't own it all. And if you drive down through
Buster,
there,
do you own some of it?
I can tell you he doesn't. I know every one of these people.
Speculating. Talk to us this afternoon.
So is this all in Glenwood?
Glenwood,
Yes.
the Glenwood neighborhood is the largest neighborhood in Greensboro. It's enormous. And its northern edge is Lee Street. And so everything you see on the south side of Lee Street here is part of the Glenwood neighborhood. And of course, lining Lee Street has been commercial activity all along. If you've heard about Glenwood and UNC-G working together, or not, it mostly comes from this deeper penetration into the neighborhood where we put this student housing. But this stuff up along Lee Street was commercial and industrial to start with. It's hard to reach out to your neighbor and ask, what do you think about what I'm going to do? I challenge you to go home and ask your neighbor what color, I'd like to have some input on what color you paint your house or things like that. And that's sort of what UNC-G tried. We went across the street and asked Glenwood to tell us what they thought about our plans. And in fact, this plan was distinctly different before we worked with the neighborhood, and we adapted it. But there are some people who really didn't want us to cross the street at all, and that, you know, we won't ever get along. So this is our first step, the first phase of UNC-G's expansion. This is wiping away all the architect's drawings except for what we have done in the first step. And as you can see, student housing, about 800 beds, 870 actually, a pedestrian underpass to get beneath the railroad corridor, and then a police station. If you drive down Lee Street today, you can see that police station, which is almost finished, and I'll show you some of that. The underpass is open. You should check that out. If you haven't checked it out, it's not your everyday run-of-the-mill tunnel. It is really cool and inviting, which we felt like was important for students. And extremely safe before you raise your hand. One of the reasons we chose to put a police station where we did is that the stigma that comes with a tunnel is that that's a scary, unsafe place. And if we needed a police station, we could have put it anywhere those other purple rectangles were, but situating it immediately adjacent to this underpass was a tactical decision. And of course, it's filled with cameras and the like, and it's very well lit. And so that's our first phase, and it has begun. You can see, in fact, the student housing has been open. If you remember during the ACC tournament a year and a half ago, one of these buildings burned during construction. We opened the other three. It was this one that burned. We opened these other three in August and then had that one completed by January. We were able to put some students in there in January, but I always like to say there's really only 2 times a year when you can fill a student housing facility. You can fill it in August, or you can fill it in August. So, give you some pictures. This is a view of what Lee Street looked like where our Phase 1 student housing has gone. This is what it looked like in 2009. And this is what it looks like today. Someday we hope that these power lines won't be there, because there's a streetscape plan by the city, which will still be several years out. But I think that'll really clean it up. This is another picture. If you turn off of Lee onto Highland Avenue, this is what it looked like in 2009. And when we built student housing, this is what it looks like today. just one block off of Lee Street is the intersection of Highland and Union. And this is what that looked like in 2009. And this is today. If you see here in the distance, these are the Phase 1 student housing that I just showed you that has been built. The next block to the west toward the Coliseum is here. And it used to have some commercial buildings there. We felt like in order to get students from this student housing to the new underpass, which is a block away, we needed to create a path that was, you know, the path of least resistance, and we wanted them to get to that lighted intersection to cross Lee Street. The underpass does not go beneath Lee Street, so this path was created that takes them to the intersection of Glenwood Avenue and Lee so that they can cross on surface. And it actually is the straightest line between the 2 points, which makes them use it. If you were at Glenwood Avenue in 2009 looking across Lee Street, you would have seen this, the old Army-Navy surplus. This is what you'll see today, the UNC-G pedestrian underpass. This is from the Lee Street side. We created a large plaza so that it could not just serve as a place where students emerged onto Lee Street, but I can see someday where activity could take place there. This is inside the pedestrian underpass. Coolest painting I've ever seen. We're traveling toward campus, toward the north side of the tracks now. All the painting looks like yellow. If we turned around and looked back, it all looks blue. I don't know how they did that. This is what it looks like on the north side. Lee Street is across the tracks from us here. This is where you come up. If you and I were walking out of this underpass, we'd be about a half block from Old Town Draft House and Yum Yums. This is that same exit. So this is the pedestrian underpass, that plaza I showed you a minute ago. And this is a picture of what the campus police building that's under construction will look like. If you have a really good memory, you'll know that the architect's plan I showed you in the first slide, second slide, showed the police building being on the right side of the underpass. Later, as we planned, we felt like this west side of it was better. So this is what that police facility looked like under construction in May. It actually looks much better today. And this is what it should look like when it's done.
That's a lot of police.
We have 32 commissioned officers. We have a investigation unit, 2 K-9 units. It's a fully commissioned police force, just a smaller version of what the city of Greensboro might have. 70 employees, 32 commissioned officers. It's 24/7. You know, a city can have an occasional homicide or an occasional theft, rape. A campus can't afford one of those. So police is important to us. Our next phase, which has actually begun construction, will be this rec center. It's a full city block, actually a super block, I would argue. Be a 216,000 square foot facility. And if you know anything about Lee Street, it'll be situated at where the old Wire Products building used to be. There's really no other landmark I can think of that's close to it that would tell it. But if you cruise down Lee Street, you can tell exactly where it's going to be because the site has been cleared and it's an entire block. This is what that rec center will look like if we're hovering above the pedestrian underpass, looking back across Lee Street, which is here. This is what the entrance to that rec center will be. This is another view of that entrance up close. This is on Lee Street. Not the Lee Street you remember now, is it? This is from the west looking east along Lee Street. on the ground level at that rec center. This is what, if we were hovering above the neighbors, this is Lee Street up here. This is Haywood Street, if you know Glenwood. This is what you'll see from the neighbor side. It has a, a green buffer along Haywood Street. And this is all pool. This is where the swim facilities in the rec center will be. We've begun planning just in the past month the next phase of student housing. If you recall, we've built these 4 buildings. Now the next thing we'll do is build student housing directly across from this underpass. So in the next 3 years, you'll see UNC-G put up buildings directly across from the underpass on Lee Street. And they'll have more, the buildings we built have one retail mixed-use space on Lee Street. We don't expect it to do well because of location. But the stuff we build directly across from this underpass, these student housing facilities, in fact, when we add this final building, we think that the mixed-use space here on Lee Street, across from the underpass, with parking close by, behind the buildings, will be where we can really have good retail stuff. That's where Mike and Dan's Beer and Pizza will be, the bike shop, things like that.
Can I ask you a question about this parking there? Are you going to dedicate that parking for the commercial people, or are you going to have like student parking there? Any commercial parking available?
Parking's not a sexy thing for architects to draw, but if you look closely, I can show you where it is. It's just hiding on the screen here. Every one of these that are labeled. So there's parking here, 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 here. And then if you've been down Lee Street, you know that we developed parking all along here already. Our students, when we stand before them and their parents at orientation, we say, just don't bring your car. We don't want it. We'll sell you a parking pass. And it's going to cost way more than you want to spend. But better yet, don't buy it. Just leave it at home. And so we work with our students to make sure that they don't bring a car at as high a rate as someone who lives off campus. And so the long answer to your question is the one I just gave. The short answer is this will be mostly dedicated for that mixed use. Otherwise, it won't work.
Did you consider an underpass under Lee Street? I feel like that's going to be, as of now, I don't know that I would love crossing Lee Street.
Yeah, moms don't want their children to cross Lee Street. And when we designed this one, we designed it so that if you look at the topography, you could cruise by there. When you look at the topography, it actually goes downhill pretty dramatically here. So when you walk out of the underpass, if you walk this way, you actually never have to go uphill to get to the sidewalk level on Lee Street. What we've done is designed it so that we can create an underpass that punches under Lee Street right here. And so when we design and build these buildings, we'll design it in a way, like you can see up there's a courtyard here. That's so that this underpass, if we ever need one to go under Lee Street, has a place to emerge. So we don't think we'll need it. We believe that people who are used to zipping down Lee Street now won't be able to in the future. This light's going to start changing to red. It's never red now. It's going to be red a lot. And so that'll slow traffic down. When the city does its streetscape work along Lee Street, we would expect some medians and some other treatments that slow traffic. But if we do need it to go under Lee Street, we've got the opportunity.
What happens to your older facilities? I think the gym and the swimming pool on Walker Street across from the big parking garage. Is that planned to be redeveloped or kept as is?
Yeah, we'll abandon the current recreation center for recreation purposes and renovate it for use for other areas, probably some academic space and athletic space. I don't really know what we're going to use it for yet. We've got a couple of years to determine that.
I've heard a lot of people talk about the cuts being made to academic programs at the school, and then you hear about these $100 million rec centers, and how do y'all balance that out?
Well, it's not easy. First of all, because we're a public institution, our funding comes from distinctly different purses. And you can't mix them. So the money that taxpayers provide UNC-G to operate is predominantly the money that pays for faculty and academics. The money that provides all of this is not taxpayer money. It's money, for example, all this orange and yellow student housing, it's paid for exactly the way you and I would pay for it if we went and built our own apartments. The rent that is collected from students who live there pays the mortgage to buy those. And so you can't take the rent money and spend it on academics, because then you couldn't provide a bed for the person paying the rent. No fool would pay the rent for that. Same is true with the rec center. That's a student fee or a facilities fee. We're allowed by law to levy a student fee. Now, it could be argued that we could just not do the rec center and not have that additional student fee. And that's a valid argument. You know, just keep the cost lower, don't charge the student the fee, and don't build the rec center. UNC-G believes that it's of strategic importance to have this rec center, because it's what students demand now. When they're deciding where to go to school, this is one of the things that they look for. And it has academic benefit. There are things that will be taught, research that will be gained in this facility. And of course, the focus on wellness and for a lifelong wellness is important. Students are developing their habits, and so there were ways we use this rec center academically and strategically in our mission. But it's absolutely true that we could choose not to charge that fee, but we couldn't substitute that fee to pay for academics. And so that's a tough explanation.
What's that going to do? What's that rec center going to do to the fees? About how much per student?
I think the total is $450 a year.
Have you considered opening it to alumni, like as a gym membership, a place to swim?
It is. Our current rec center and this one is open to alumni. And we were talking with the Glenwood neighborhood about opening it for residents of Glenwood and owners in Glenwood to have the opportunity to participate.
A long time ago, when I was in college with Moses, it was traditional to have shared rooms and a centralized shower room. And now students, are coming from homes where they had all the luxuries of private room, private bed. What are the interiors of the new housing going to be like?
Well, this will be designed with upperclassmen in mind, and so there won't be many beds in this development that share a room with another bed. We still have the traditional residence halls, and that's where freshmen will live and learn painstakingly to live with others and share a bathroom down the hall with 30 of your closest friends. And so we think that's good. We think that's actually a good thing. But it's not long before they want to get out and have that room to their own again, and that's what this will be.
As a public institution, how much influence do you all have on setting tuition, and how much of that is set by the state government or other bodies?
The question is, how much control do we have on tuition setting? The legislature sets tuition. The UNC system has the autonomy to levy additional fees and also a campus-initiated tuition. But we're capped at how much we can do of that each year. And so the legislature has the most power. And then each campus has a little bit of power to levy some tuition needs. But that's treated sort of like one of these facilities fees. It's a separate bucket that you levy against the students. It's a tax that they pay or a fee that they pay for additional, in that case, academic support. And so the campuses have some control over that, but the most of it comes from the legislature for public institutions.
Dan, I know you're probably about ready to close, so probably one of the questions that all of us have in mind that have lived here for a long time is, do you ever anticipate taking the land from Yum Yums?
Well, of course not. There's
Can
one.
we ring the bell now?
No, that was cool. There's one institution situated along Spring Garden Street that is larger than UNC-G, and that would be Yum Yums. And so we actually talked with Yum Yums when we built, well, I can't see it on this map, but we built one of our new housing facilities with mixed use on the first floor. We sat down with Yum Yums to design a space that they would move into, so that it would be theirs. And they're owned by, there's not a single owner, it's a family ownership. And the thing that got them on that was where the parking was going to be. And so we recognize that Yum Yums is important, and our alumni love it. We have
They've
Yum Yums.
already moved 3 times.
Yeah, and we only started talking recently about that last move, which was in the 70s. We finally are getting along again. But no, we don't have plans to take Yum Yums unless Yum Yums wants to be taken.
We have a book for you that's going to be donated to Cone Elementary, and we need you to draw one of Katie's numbers if you would.
So am I doing this like he did
Last
when
3
he won
digits.
the Pig Fest last year, or am I doing this
You can't buy this one.
715-902?
Right here.
All right.